Hey, welcome. Today I want to talk about mindfulness, what that actually means, and what the Buddha originally taught. Mindfulness is a word that's thrown around a lot nowadays, and there's what we consider to be like a secular mindfulness movement, and this just kind of feel good kind of, what is it? There's t-shirts like breathe in the good, breathe out the bad kind of stuff. Not necessarily what the Buddha taught originally. And what's cool about mindfulness is it's kind of like a toolkit. It's a guidebook that you can use. It's steps that you can take to train the mind in awareness, train this being in awareness. How can we be more mindful in our lives? And then learn something about ourselves in the process, essentially. So mindfulness is set up in 4 foundations. You'll be familiar with the first one especially. Meditation is oftentimes, if you've experienced any meditation, focus on the breath. What does it feel like to be in this body, right? This is the first foundation of mindfulness, breath and body. Can we just be, firstly, with just the physical sensations of breathing? That comes with its own share of problems. I sometimes get, and especially when I first started meditating, you get into this rut of like, okay, when am I present with the breath versus controlling the breath? Like if I'm thinking about breathing, am I not controlling my breathing? That's a fun thing to struggle with when you're trying to meditate. More than anything, I just encourage people to say, okay, don't elongate the breath, don't deepen the breath. There's no such thing as like a Buddhist breath, right? Just be with the breath as it is right now. Maybe that's shallow, maybe it's a little deeper, maybe it's faster than you think it should be. A lot of what we're doing in all of meditation is just practicing awareness. Can I be present with what is without adding on to that, without elaborating, without judging, without putting it up against other things that have happened in our lives? So once you settle with the breath, you can expand to the rest of the physical sensations of this moment. What does it feel like? And you can do this right now. What does it feel like being in the room that you're in? Or the car, or wherever you're at? Can you feel yourself, if you're seated, being supported by your chair, your cushion, or wherever you are? If you're standing, can you feel the weight of your feet? Can we be present with the full physical sensations that just all kind of come together to form this moment? Because so often, we're so preoccupied with what we're doing or what we're going to do, what our plans are, our resentments, our fantasies, all of these things, that we forget this. Again, it's just awareness, resisting the urge to judge, to elaborate, to do all of the things. It's just this. I've said this before, but my favorite Ajahn Sumedho quote, Thai forest monk, he says, right now it's like this. That's it. Right now, it's like this. No need to change anything. No need really for anything to be different than it is right now. It can be whatever. Just right now, it's like this. I don't have to take control over this moment. It can just be this moment. So breath, and the body. When we expand to the body in meditation, I try to allow awareness to kind of have its own choices. Wherever the awareness tends to fall is where the awareness is. I don't direct it, essentially. Sometimes that means just the breath, right? Because whenever we can establish with the breath and then expand, sometimes people think, I thought for a long time that was, we're moving on. We're no longer being aware of the breath. Now we're moving on to the body, like it's sequential. That's not the case. Breathing is very much a part of the physical experience of anything. And so sometimes when I expand to the body, it's just the breath. It's just this consistent in and out. But every once in a while, awareness goes to something else. Depending on how long you've been sitting, especially in formal meditation practice, it's like, oh yeah, my legs hurt or my back hurts. Tends to go towards those experiences. But once you build up a little bit of a tolerance, a lot of times it's, this morning in Oklahoma, it's cool. And so being in the meditation center right now, the air is cool on the skin. The stillness, I can sit with the stillness there. So sometimes those are things that come up in meditation. Okay, so moving in to the third foundation of mindfulness, which is the feeling tone. We've already established that we're not controlling awareness, we're just letting things arise. When you settle, the awareness settles on something, a physical experience in meditation, can you see what kind of feeling tone that experience has? Is it, and we're only using 3 labels, right? Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Or is it neutral? This, using these labels, keeps us from adding some sort of value to something. It keeps us from searching for something, right? We're not looking for something to pay attention to. We're just being aware of what comes up. So right now, if I'm sitting, I've already meditated just recently, and so my back is a little sore. And so my awareness would rest on my back. Like, yeah, that's unpleasant. That's it. Right now, it's like this. That's not the only sensation in my experience, but that's where the attention's kind of falling right now. And that's okay. This becomes one of those discipline practices, right? When we rest on something pleasant, and then the awareness wants to move, do we cling to that pleasant? When we rest on something unpleasant, do we immediately try to change to something more pleasant? Or do we try to fix it? Here at the meditation center, often it's just like a 30-minute meditation, whether that is led or silent. And when it's 30 minutes, I usually encourage people, if we're going into these foundations, like, okay, if you find something unpleasant, don't fix it. Resist the urge to acquiesce to everything your mind tells you, because it's going to tell you you're going to die. If you don't move your legs, rigor mortis is going to set in and you will die. And I need you to move. And then you move. And then something else feels weird. And then you got to move that. It's a cycle, right? Cycle of craving. Whereas it can simply be right now it's like this. There's a little bit of unpleasantness in my back. Now I can feel the cool air hitting the nostrils, the entrance there. It's kind of pleasant. I can feel the weight of my shoulders kind of pulling away from the ears. That's a little pleasant. Sometimes it'll be neutral, right? Sometimes we have to almost direct to those neutral things. Like think of your elbows, the earlobes, things like that. And it's not so much the experience itself, but do you know what the mind does when you're faced with neutral experiences? A lot of times it is seeking entertainment or something that's more interesting. Right? I'd rather have something unpleasant than neutral. Neutral's boring. But knowing those tendencies of the mind is really important because they serve you in life. That's ultimately the point of this practice, right? So, breath and body, opening to feeling tones, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And then we open again. We've been kind of setting the mind aside. All of the things. And you're sitting with your breath and you're kind of labeling like breathing in, breathing out, or in, out, whatever. And then the mind goes off on like, hey, you got soccer today. What time are you supposed to be there? You just go back to the breath. It's all with kindness. Sometimes we liken that to you're going into a department store with a child and they kind of run away from that normal walkway and you just kind of back. Or training a puppy. You've got those puppy training pads. Just back to the pad, back to the pad. That's the practice, right? But then when you get to this third foundation of mindfulness, you open to the mind. And we've had practice of going back to the breath. Even when you open to the feeling tones, if you get caught up in stories or you get caught up in judgments or anything like that, elaborations, anything you're elaborating on that's not just the experience, then we go back to the breath and we re-expand. When you go to the mind, we've had a little bit of practice with this redirect. What does it feel like to be with the mind without elaborating on every thought that arises? Can we be present with what this mind's coming up with? There's a lot of wisdom in that practice of like, oh, wow. What does this feel like to not take this so personally and to see like, oh, the mind just came up with this on its own. I can let thoughts arise on their own, sustain on their own, and pass on their own without getting involved. What does this say about my life? How often do I just take what my mind says as gospel, as we would say in Oklahoma? Just completely true. Blind faith in the mind and what it comes up with. And you sit in meditation, you're like, wow, I definitely didn't think that. This morning in meditation, for some reason, do you remember, I'm a child of the 90s, but I grew up in the 80s, or I was born in the 80s, I should say. They had these plush, they called glowworms, and I think they brought them back, so maybe everybody knows what they are now. The glowworms, like this glow molded, or whatever that's called, the molded face, and the plush body. When you squeeze the body, the head lights up, called a glowworm. Now, did I actively think, you know what, I'm going to try to figure out some obscure toy from my early childhood to think about? That was not a conscious decision. It just arose. I don't know where it came from. It doesn't matter. But it arose, and I go back to the breath. Well, if I'm opening to this third level of mindfulness, the mind, right now it's like this. And then it passes off. And then whenever I do this, I remember it again. Yeah? It's just thoughts. It's just things arising. It's nothing you have to take personal. And it's not permanent. They come, they go. Sometimes feels like it's never going away. And you sit with the body and something's hurting and that's the only thing you can focus on. But it does. It moves, it shifts. Something else more interesting will catch the eye of awareness. So what we've been doing, start with the breath, expand to the body, expand to the feeling tone, expand to the mind. We're kind of just giving ourselves like a zoomed out view of everything, right? We're starting with something very simple that's easy to see whether we're adhering or not. And then it gets a little bit more difficult because you're including more phenomena that you can pay attention to. This fourth foundation of mindfulness zooms out even a little bit more. And I liken this to taking a road trip, not a commute. Because commutes, we just kind of autopilot sometimes and you end up where you're at and you're like, oh, wow, here we are. But road trips, sometimes you get caught on just the dots in the road or the traffic patterns. And then every once in a while you'll kind of look up and you're like, oh, wow, completely different scenery. I'm now here because I've been focusing here. This fourth foundation, I kind of consider that to be kind of like an opening even more. What's present right now? What's actually happening? Can I see things like restlessness in my practice? Can I see things like peace Is there an ease in what I'm doing? What's actually happening? What's the color of this experience? What's going on? And so it's pretty laid out. Like, this is how to cultivate awareness, cultivate mindfulness. How can we be present? And here's where I think Buddhism has a lot of things right that the secular mindfulness movement doesn't. All of the things that is said about mindfulness, like take a break, like when you turn your faucet on and you're washing your hands, just be present with that. When you're doing the dishes, do the dishes, right? When you're eating, just eat. Try to be present with what's in front of you. That is all massively valuable and an extension of this practice. But this formal meditation practice is so important to see very clearly what your mind does. What are these tendencies that arise for you? Because I can give you examples, but they're never going to be exactly what happens for you. I can remember talking to my teacher once, because they'd always bring up lust. Like lust will arise, or judgment will arise, priorities will arise, task lists, things like that. And I thought that I was unique. I thought that I was experiencing something completely different than everybody else. And so I said, hey, my mind comes up with nonsense. Like, why is it just nonsense? It's seemingly like ridiculous things all thrown together. It doesn't make any, it's not any temptation. It's not any resentment. It's just glowworms. And he said, yeah, right now it's like this. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not special, which is fine. But that's interesting. Like, this mind, whatever's contained in here, does things differently than some other people. It's not anything crazy, but it's something to know. Why this matters. When you practice mindfulness, you try to cultivate mindfulness in your life. It starts here. It starts on a cushion. It starts with a formal practice to really hone in. I've said this before on this channel, but meditation practice just slows everything down, where you can see things more clearly. And the practice itself is not the peace that comes sometimes. It's the redirect. It's this consistent back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath every time. No matter which foundation you're on, if you start elaborating, start telling yourself stories, start making excuses, start trying to fix now instead of being present for it, back to the breath. This is training the mind. The Buddha didn't know the term neuroplasticity, but it seems like he had a bit of an understanding. We can change the way that we respond to situations over time by practicing these things, these qualities. So can I be with this moment without having to stick my fingers in it, without having to get involved all the time, without taking everything so personally? I see a direct correlation between the amount of suffering that I experience now and the effort I have put in a meditation practice that helps me cope with the way that this mind just naturally deals with things that arise. Because I know, oh, you're going to have a tendency to take this personally. Maybe it's time to step back for a second. Back to the breath. Or this sound or this vision, this thing that I've come across has now caused me to go down this rabbit hole of thought and blame and storytelling and all of this stuff. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, that kind of thing. Back to the breath. What's present here now? And you can start labeling those things, and the mind comes up. It's like, oh, that's the judging mind. That's the planning mind. That's the confused mind. That's the angry mind. And when you start labeling it like that, you start seeing it as separate from I, me, mine, those kinds of concepts, it's not as hard to be like, yeah, that's ridiculous. It's just a glowworm. Doesn't say anything about me. So I think over the next week, I will post some meditations. So just be prepared if you're subscribed to see those things come up. I might do separate meditations for the different foundations, or I may do one that's all the foundations of mindfulness, or I may do all of those things. But I want to continue putting together like a resource for you. If you want to be guided in a meditation, that you can do that. Once you've done this and you understand the concept, and you can do it a couple of times, and this is what it feels like to practice the Four Foundations, do it on your own. Don't just rely on someone guiding you through meditation. Give yourself a little bit of space to work with that mind, this mind, what's present now. Because if someone prompts you and you're like, oh, I wasn't ready yet, that doesn't help all the time. Silent meditation on your own can be massively beneficial. I hope this helps. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you have had something reinforced or just reminded of something, if anything. My ultimate goal, of course, is for you to practice. I hope that this helps you relieve a little bit of your suffering. I hope it gets you a little bit more in touch with the way that the mind works. The things that just happen normally, so that way you can relate and respond rather than just reacting all the time. Either way, thank you for being here. I appreciate you watching these. I think this is one of the most beneficial things that I can do with my energy, with so much division and so much negativity everywhere, that I just want to spread a little bit of positivity, a little bit of practices that we can all use to maybe be just a little bit better in our lives. So I appreciate you being here for that. And I'll see you in the next one.